Man.
There he is.
Rock as always.
Colin basketball.
Colin basketball.
Representing. So you got to say some opening words, man. What is Colin basketball? Nobody even knows what that is.
Man.
I think Jay Billis said something the other day. You might have to get on him about that.
He did. I mean, that hurt. I mean, during the West Virginia Gonzaga game, he said he had heard of a lot of junior colleges, but he had never heard of Colin College.
What?
What? Like, Jay, come on, man.
You sleep, man. What you doing?
Sleeping, you know. I could just, the Godfather, Jimmy Sagona. I think, honestly, it might be one of those things. If you look at Jay, he may have said that it might be a slight because he's jealous of, Coach Sagona's hair.
That's true. That is a possibility.
So tell us about your JUCO days real quick. You went prep school. You went to Centenary Division I when it was still Division I. You emailed us to come basically try out more or less. Can I come play open run? Division I transfer, emailing like we talked about back in the day. And then he comes in, drove through the night. Who knows how this guy is, he's grinding. So next thing you know, this guy's raining threes from all over, and we sign him, and he becomes our leading scorer, and then goes on to Mercer, and then is the second leading three-point makes as a senior in the country. Missed it by one shot, one make?
1-3, man. A toe on the line against Campbell in the corner.
Toe on the line, man.
Was EJ about 108 pounds soaking wet when he showed up at Colin?
No, he was actually out. I thought the dude played football. I'm like, he looked like a strong safety or something. This guy's got a basketball player. Man, what is
more like nose tackle?
You got to remember, I was like 22 when I went to Collins. So.
That's true. Yeah.
Oh man.
Went to prep school a few times.
I think we should.
I was my own agent long before I knew it. I was just I'm emailing Collin County. Just give me an opportunity.
Basically, EJ's entire career has been him sending an email saying, "Hey, can I play?"
Yeah.
And now you're doing it for other players.
Yeah, man. When I was coming out of Centenary, so I had played a year and redshirted a year, but the red shirt was strategic because I knew I wasn't going to play.
Yeah.
Basically, my head coach told me that. Coach, what can I do? I'll do anything. Like, how do I get in?
You're not going to play, buddy. Just crazy.
Yeah. So, for me, it was like coming from like a 4-23 Division I team. A lot of people are like, man, just go Division II. But, here's an option. You could redshirt and then go JUCO.
Right.
So that's the route that I took and started sending emails out. And Mr. Burton replied to my email and said, hey, open gym, come through.
Yep.
And I had a good day that day.
You did have a good day. You did have a good day.
I had
got shirts and skins at 5 o'clock if you want to come
through. They brought me to the office after. And they were like, hey, we're ready to offer you a full scholarship. We just got to run it by Craig Stanley. Craig Stanley. He's like the LeBron of Collin County, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, hey, we got to get the approval of I think they describe it as like the Michael Jordan of Collin County. So,
oh man,
go through him, and then I had to go to Wiley High School and do a tour there to see where Stephen Pierce went. One of our other assistant coaches was a Hall of Famer. So
yes,
a couple steps involved there, but we got it done.
And Stephen Pierce, real quick shout out to Stephen Pierce. He did take his team to state at Wiley. In Dallas, and actually, Courtney Smith is his assistant, and he also played at Grayson College, and also worked at Collin County as an assistant too. So, quick shout out to the Wiley Pirates, doing big things.
Big things. But no, my junior college, I think people have touched on it. I think earlier here too is like the stigma. But I had a few different. I actually set up meetings at the Final Four that year. So before I made my final decision, I met with Coach Sagona and a few others at the Final Four, and then made my decision. And it was honestly a pretty easy decision after kind of meeting Coach and looking what he had done with his program and how well run it was, and we ran it like a Division I program.
Yep. So talk real quick about the Godfather. I'm gonna pass the mic to BG after that. Talk real quick about the Godfather, Jim Segona. He's built the program from scratch. He's who I got my first job, or I should say, first full-time job working for, living in the apartments, monitoring the guys in the apartments, doing the whole nine. Godfather has been there for over 30 years. He started the program back in the day. He's in the John Beeline tree. Just a tremendous, tremendous coach and person, always talking about doing things the right way. So talk a little bit about him and how that prepared you to go back to the next level. Because for you thought it was almost more Division I than even your Division I was.
It was. I didn't think that. It was a more Division I than my Division I was. Yeah, I think just the way that unbelievable coach from a basketball standpoint, but also just from the way that he approached his players, right? So just for me, like I was coming out of a situation where I was basically told, like, you're not good. Like, you're not good enough. And that's on a bad team. So I'm like, well, am I not good enough? And, he really instilled confidence and kind of gave life back to my basketball career. Just being like, hey, you're going to be okay. You are a Division I player. It's going to work out. And I'm going to put you in a position to succeed. And not a huge ego guy, right? Where, even just the year you were there, like I remember I used to hate it. He used to leave the gym and let you do conditioning, right? Like he was very like, hey, trying to empower others, but it was like one of those things. It was like, coach, like, hey, don't leave this guy alone. But yeah, it was just like it playing for him made me love basketball again, enjoy the game. And, one kind of moment where I was coming out of a game, I had missed some shots. And I'm frustrated because the weight of the world is on me. I need a Division I scholarship and I missed 3 threes in a row and he's laughing at me. I'm like, what? I'm like kind of pissed that he's laughing. He's, would you relax? And it kind of made me realize like, okay, I can relax. Like I'm not going to get pulled out if I miss a shot. He's like, go sit down, relax, take a couple deep breaths, and I'll put you back in and run a play for you. Okay? Chill out.
And you shoot it again, okay?
Be like, Brian, EJ, would you go talk to him for a second? So I love that about him. And then I love the fact that like he'd also roll his sleeves up and get in an official's face and get ejected from a game, but on behalf of his guys, like you just knew that he had your best interest. He's going to run through a wall for you. And so like, that's the type of guy where like you want to do everything you can to help him, win games.
Yep. No doubt. And one of those guys who, JUCO also gets this stigma of not really running offense and just rolling the balls out. And Coach Segona's offense may be more complicated than most Division I's I've worked at as far as the playbook, the reads, the way he teaches the game. So I know that helped you translate to the next level. So I'll pass it to BG now. I'll step out for a second, and you can tell some funny stories about me while I'm gone if you want, but please don't.
What's up, dude?
What's up, man?
So junior college is such an interesting space because there's so many different things that you can take away from it, right? Like there's some guys that, it's the toughness aspect. Some guys, it's the overcoming, chaos sometimes aspect of it. I imagine when you started your basketball career, junior college wasn't on your radar for where you would take that path. What's something that when you were there with a coach like that, especially that really stuck with you and has carried on with you now, knowing who you are and how you go about your business and the way that you do things? Like what's something that maybe you kind of took away from that time there at Collin that you use today?
Yeah, I really think it's the level of like knowing when you know that somebody cares. I think that's just a huge aspect, whether you're a coach, whether you're an agent, whether you're helping a guy with his recruiting, whatever it may be. If people know you care, that's a unbelievable foundation and thing to start from. And that was the biggest thing is like I had come from a situation where like people didn't care, like they didn't care about me. Like there was no confidence being instilled. There was no vision being cast of like, you could be this, or, hey, times are tough right now. You're not getting minutes, but keep working because this guy's going to graduate and you're going to have an opportunity. And that was by far the biggest thing is that I felt like, okay, I can play basketball again. I can play freely, and I know that he has my best interest here. Like, we're trying to win games, but also like he's putting me in a position to where, I'm going to get recruited and I'm going to be successful. And even though I was joking in the private comments over here with Coach Green, but I'll never forget that McLennan game is like he had me come off the bench for the back end of the season. And initially I was kind of like pissed about it, but he like sat me down and was like, this is why I'm doing it. Like, I think the way you're got so much stress on you because, you're trying to perform, and I got these guys coming through the gym. You need to kind of let it go. I'm going to bring you off the bench. I'm going to let the game flow. I'm going to put you in. You're still going to play as many minutes. And just like little things like that. But it was easy for me to accept that because I knew at the end of the day that he was picking up the phone. He was calling coaches. He was bringing coaches in to see me. He was advocating for me even when whether I played well or didn't play well. So that's the thing I took away is that, just kind of caring about guys and then sticking with them and helping them, doing everything you can to help them realize the end goal.
Well, it's interesting because your whole story, we joked about it before with the, sending the emails like the, hey, can I play thing? Like every aspect of from when you left Centenary to junior college to Mercer to being a pro to now being beyond there has always been like just kind of like figure it out and like put in the work and do the things that other people aren't doing. Right. And that's kind of a junior college story in and of itself, where the first time I met you, we were down in Dallas and Dan says, hey, you got to meet this guy, EJ. And you're telling me about sending emails to every team in the world. Yeah. And you would literally get a job from a team that you emailed a year ago, that suddenly like check that email and they're like, hey, do you still want to come play? And it's just like that whole aspect of just figure it out. Like, you're not going to be handed anything in junior college by any means. So
no means. I mean, I think we ended up having like 8 guys go Division I off that team, so it was a situation too, where you're coming in and it's like, every day's a battle in practice. And then we're in Region 5, in the North Texas League. And it's like, it was very much going to be one of those situations where you had to earn everything. And you had to, it's junior college, right? So it's again, you're an underdog, like just off rip. And, I think for me too, it was, I had something to prove. Like, I had to prove that I was a Division I player all over again. And I had already done that once before, right? Where I felt like, okay, I got this scholarship. And then a lot of players don't realize is like getting the scholarship is part of the battle, but then you get there, then you got to play and be happy. And I had one Division I scholarship, coming out of prep school. And so it's like, you can't really, you kind of have to take what you got.
Right.
Did you say 8 Division I guys? Who recruited all those guys, man?
Dang, man, we had a heck of a recruiter. Do I tell a Coach B story? Like, he talked about living in the apartments.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So this is not indicative in any way of Collin County. I know this could have happened some places in junior college basketball. I want to say that first and foremost. But we came home from a road game. And there were some guys that were waiting to jump one of our teammates.
We did.
So there was a confrontation, we'll say, in the apartment. What would you call that? Common area. And not gonna lie, I was ready to go. And one of my teammates who easily had the most street smarts out of any of us was like, "Hey man, just chill out." And the next thing you know, guy pulls a gun out.
Oh my God.
Right? And he's like, yeah, like, who won it now? Like, who won it now? And I'm like, wow, I certainly don't. As this is happening, here comes Coach B around the corner, like, hey, what's going on over here? I'm like, oh, it's bad timing. Like, it's either good timing, bad timing. I don't know what kind of timing it is. So this guy comes, gets in the middle of it, like pushes us like this into the apartment, right? And closes the door. So we're all in the apartment and we're like, yo, guys, Coach B's out there with these guys. And they kept pointing the gun, right? But like, obviously he was obviously a great recruiter and also a great negotiator here too, because those guys left But you know, I always say like, hey, you can never say you wouldn't stand in front of a gun for me, right? Because you did.
Oh my God.
We didn't even know that story. How about
Brian
that?
Burton's out there just Denzel Washingtoning this thing, like negotiating the heck out of it while EJ and the guys are in the apartment.
That was the crazy part about that story too is
Oh my God.
I was literally like, I got a call saying I needed to come over there, right? So as I pull up and I park, the guy next to me goes in his trunk, right? And gets something out of his trunk. And I'm literally like walking side by side next to this dude, not knowing this is the same guy that's about to have a gun in my face in about 5 minutes. So yeah, wild story. Great times in JUCO. Yeah, I didn't take a bullet for you, but I was close.
You're close. You know, you put yourself in position to.
I was close. Thank God nothing happened. Talk a little bit about NBA life. You have an NBA guy you represent that played junior college. You've now become an agent. You used to be an agent for yourself in JUCO to get a scholarship, then Division I, then overseas. You played 5 years. Now you're an NBA agent, like legitimate NBA agent, have NBA players, and one of them came from junior college. Just talk anything about just that level. And we just had a guy we talked about in Jay Scrub who just got drafted straight from JUCO. So just talk a little bit about JUCO as it relates to the NBA. Is it possible for guys to make it to that level? Because I think that's something that people want to kind of know about.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think, you know, Miami Heat in the finals were like a perfect example of that with Jimmy Butler, and Jay Crowder was a JUCO guy too, right? But yeah, Josh Gray, I mean, you know, similar type story, you know, was a JUCO guy, did the same thing as me. He started at Texas Tech, went to Odessa, then finished at LSU. But I'm talking about a guy that, you know, was a senior, average like 5.2 points per game, something like that, and had to go a different route, had to go the open tryout route, G League, went to Korea for a season. You know, he's had some 10 days, 2-way contracts. And yeah, I mean, it just, I guess the story there is that like Josh Gray is like the toughest, probably like he's the toughest dude I know, right? So like that's just a guy that when adversity strikes, like he's a guy that's going to keep pushing through. He's got an incredible belief in himself, but that belief is also based in the work that he puts in. And that's what I enjoy most about being an agent, is working with guys like him where, you know, their expectations are based on the work that they put in. And, you know, having that chip on your shoulder, having that underdog story kind of been told over and over again that you're not good enough. And then you continue to prove people wrong. Like, you know, those are the most fun stories and journeys to be a part of. Because it kind of aligns with the journey that I was on, where people told me I wasn't good enough for certain things, and, you know, just kept seeking opportunities. And when the opportunity presented itself, you know, you capitalize. And that's really what being an agent is trying to get as many opportunities as you can for the player. And then the player has to, you know, capitalize on that. And, you know, Josh is a perfect example. I mean, he just signed a contract for $1.62 million, you know, 2 weeks ago. And that's life-changing money, to say the least. And that's a guy that, you know, came from JUCO, and, you know, had his ups and downs, and you know, but always believed in himself ultimately, and was willing to bet on himself. And I think at the max, you at least will hit your ceiling. They'll at least find your ceiling. And that's the kind of guys I want to represent, is the guys that are going to get to their ceiling, as opposed to the guys who have a high ceiling and never come close to it because they don't have that chip or that underdog kind of mentality.
Right. And it's an interesting time now too, because just like recruiting at the college level, where we can see everybody now, right? Like, doesn't matter where they are on the planet, they can get seen, they can get recruited. The NBA is very much like that as well, where if you're good enough, they'll find you. You know, now the difference between the guy that doesn't make the roster and the guy that's like 7th on the roster is fractional, right? I mean, at that level, everything is so good. But it's interesting to kind of watch the NBA now, some of the diversity of where these stories are coming from, you know, whether it be international, whether it be the junior college space, whether it be smaller schools, stuff like that, because it's easier to see everybody. It's easier to find people. And so I think, you and I talk a lot about junior college guys, and it's interesting because there are some of those junior college guys that really, really legitimately have a chance. And it's not that they have to be at North Carolina or Duke anymore to really actually legitimately have a chance. But there are guys like Michael Mulder, right? Goes to Vincennes, goes to Kentucky. What do you play? Maybe 10, 12 minutes a night at Kentucky at most, maybe even less than that. But had that, just not give up, keep fighting, and he's got paid by the Warriors last year. He's in camp again this year. And so he was at the highest of the high. But then you've got other guys that Jay Scrubb was, not only was he not at a blue blood, he was still at a junior college. So it's different. It's different. And I think we're going to start seeing, that kind of shift to, just because you're at some big school does not necessarily mean that, you're on that path, that you're going to get beat out by some of these guys that are not, at those blue bloods.
Yeah. And I think what happens is at some point in time, it doesn't matter. So it matters, it matters a little bit. Like when you're getting that first job overseas, or when you're going through the NBA process, there is a level of, where you went to school and that, but then at some point in time, you got to go earn it.
Yeah.
Whether that's in a workout, whether that's summer league, whether it's training camp, and you're either good enough or you're not. And at some point in time, it doesn't matter where you went to school. It's are you good enough? And the NBA all of this is a business. Like college basketball is a business too, but it's like, hey, if you're not good enough to help us win games or contribute to winning or contribute to this business, then we don't care if you went to Vincennes or if you went to North Carolina.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And on our podcasts and stuff, some of the guys that we've had on there that have been, it was like Francisco Elson, coming on there and when he played junior college, and then he goes to Cal, but then he goes over to Europe and, spends 4 or 5 years over there. And it's finding that different path. And I think there's something to be said about some of those junior college guys, the things that they learn and the things that they deal with in junior college, and how that helps them just kind of continue to grind it out until they get to where they want to be. Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys playing junior college basketball that aren't supposed to be playing junior college basketball. It's, it's for one of, a multitude of reasons, whether it be,
right,
you're trying to make a transfer move, to use that as a bridge to get back to Division I level. And, you don't want to sit out or you can't sit out, or, you might be a non-qualifier, and sometimes I think some people think that means a guy is dumb. It also may mean that they got bad guidance from whatever school, high school they were in, and they didn't get the core qualifying classes and things that, are somewhat out of their control, right? Because they're, no one told them that, right? They didn't have a coach, or they didn't have anybody that was familiar enough to help them through that process. So, but yeah.
I just, as we were talking here about Centenary earlier, I realized when I used to play the NCAA video game, I always played as Centenary because I wanted to play as the worst team and then try and win a championship with them. And I used to download the rosters from somebody because whoever was on there. I absolutely have played video game as EJ Kusnyer before.
Hey.
I love it. I don't know how that went for you, but I love it. I love it. So you were talking about NBA guys. We're going to bring in a high level, our next guest, super high level assistant coach, was, I don't even know, probably won 5 championships. I took away one of Eric's, so I may take one of GH's too. 5 championships in Florida, has coached numerous pros, been to the Final Four as an assistant coach. It was super impactful there at Wichita State, helped win the SEC at LSU when before that they weren't really doing very well. And now he's just taking a job at East Tennessee State. So we're going to enter Greg Heyer. He can talk a little bit about NBA guys himself. GH, you're on mute. What's up, man?
What's up, B? What's up, BG? How are you, EJ?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Good to be on here.
we're talking NBA guys. You know a few, so talk about some of the NBA guys you've coached that have played in JUCO. Not the Fred VanVleets at Wichita State, but let's talk about the JUCO dudes that have gone on.
My first one was Michael Taylor. That was my first year as a head coach. Blessed to have Michael Taylor come on. He went to Iowa State, and then he was drafted in the NBA. And then the second one was Clay Anthony Early that got drafted at Wichita State. And then now Marlon Taylor just signed with the Wizards this year. He was with us last year at LSU, and got several that, were playing over in the Euro League and overseas, and several of them that played in the G League. Stefan Hanna won a G League championship, and, just blessed to coach some wonderful young men that could really play basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll give you one more before we let EJ go. So, EJ, we told the story about JUCO. You played in it. You told the story about the negotiator. We won't go back to that one. Is there anything you got left before you leave about JUCO, about the NBA life? I guess you could kind of spell some. So, for those that don't know, EJ Kusnyer's podcast on All Access Coaches Corner is coming out tomorrow. So we look forward to that dropping. And he'll give you all the gems on the truth behind the NBA life and what it takes to really get to that level. And everybody says this guy's a pro, that guy's a pro. But talk a little bit about that before you go, because some of the JUCO coaches, players, parents, I'm sure all want to kind of hear, like, how do you really make it to the league? What's really in the evaluation process, right? Like, what really goes into being good enough?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like there's a lot of guys that are good enough that don't make it, and there's guys that are perceived as not being good enough that do make it. And I really think that, we've talked about this before, is like some of these guys have a fake finish line, feel like they've arrived. And the reality of it is your best bet if you want to be a pro at any level, NBA, overseas, is like you can never have that sense of like I made it. Because as soon as you have that, I feel like you put yourself at a disadvantage, and you're going to be on your way, either making less money or you're going to be out of that respective league and dropping a few rungs. And, the thing that I look at when I'm evaluating guys is, number one, do I like the player? Do I connect with their game? What do NBA people say? Because there's only 30 NBA teams. So if 30 of them don't think that he's an NBA player, then he's not an NBA player. But it's like, why isn't he an NBA player? Can that be fixed? And then do all these other things translate? And, now the NBA has become a place where, it's multi-positional. It's all about switching. Can you make shots? And then can you play a role? Can you be really, really, really good at one thing or two things? Because that's ultimately what's going to help you on the back end of that roster once you get past 3 or 4 of those top guys on the roster.
And then lastly, EJ, talk about the character part, how that plays in, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think the character, it's a sliding scale. Like we all know this, right? Like the more talented you are, the more of a threshold there is of probably like putting up with some stuff. But I also really think at the end of the day, like that all catches up to you at some point in time, and either takes away marketing opportunities or it takes away something from your legacy, in my opinion. But if you've got that attitude or you've got that process of like, I'm not there yet, I'm going to keep getting better, I'm going to keep working, I'm going to keep fighting, then, I think you got a chance of reaching your, me and BG were talking about that as like your ceiling. Like I want guys that are going to at minimum reach their ceiling. And that's all you can really ask for. It's the guys that miss the ceiling that is the disappointing most. So
cool. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Kush. The hair's fantastic as always.
Look, Colin, I didn't know that East Tennessee State logo kind of burns. They beat us in the conference championship. That's a long time ago, but hey, Johnson City, not an easy place to go and win a basketball game.
No, not an easy place, EJ. Great to see you, and yeah, it's been a great place so far. Good to see you and hear your experiences, and what an awesome path you've taken to get to where where you're at, and you're just going to continue to. You got the right mindset, I can tell from. I've listened to your whole interview. Impressive.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, EJ, it's snowing out here, so I'll bring you some mittens. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be up there to see Isaiah and Cortland here whenever they let us into the arenas, right?
Right.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you, DJ. Be safe out there.
Hey, man, same.
Hey, no more new babies either, man. We're I don't know. We're not in the competition.
This is my official retirement announcement. Okay, we're done.
Hey, you and me both.
Shoot or shoot, shoot or shoot, man.
Later, man.